Hey, welcome back to the Resource Center. We had a really good session on the main stage, and we're going to dig in deeper on these topics. So if you didn't join us on the main stage, my name's Ray Nelson, and I'm joined by Chris BOTTGER from CISCO, Matt Sosman from Microsoft, and Scott KINKA from EVOLVEIP. And we're talking about the workplace of the future, right? That's what we're digging. We all know that the workplace is different, right? And so on the main stage, I think we talked a lot about what's going on in the office, right? What I want to throw out to the panel here is, what other industries outside of the office, what are you guys doing? What are you guys seeing that you can help a partner with? Or, industries, for us at ScanSource and Intelisys, healthcare is big, warehousing, retail is all big. And this isn't just, video conferencing, it's other things as well. So I'm throwing it out to you. What other industries do you see that are really affected by this, that you're helping out, or what unique solutions do you have? So I think I started with Chris last time. Matt, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. So, a big industry, all those that you named, absolutely. Another one is advertising and marketing. And specifically, when you think about event marketing, right now there's no in-person events. And so a lot of those marketers that are making a living out there trying to market conferences, tech conferences, whatever it may be, they're hit pretty hard right now. But what's interesting is they're starting to digitally transform. And rather than marketing in-person events, they're marketing digital events like this one and a webinar. And you think about all these digital conferences that are now taking place, like Microsoft Build is this week as well. That marketing and advertising industry, they're starting to shift, and they're starting to go more digital, which means they have to start having the right technology in place to be able to do that effectively. And then just one other one that we're starting to see a big one in, and actually hit home here for me in San Diego, is you mentioned retail, but it's also hospitality, but specifically I would say restaurants. Right now, obviously, a lot of restaurants are hit hard, and here in California, they're making a law where you can't use a paper menu; it has to be disposable. And so, a lot of our partners are seeing it as an opportunity to have digital menus. Maybe it's a tablet, some sort of device that has the menu on it, and that's interesting because then you could track things like food orders and what's the popular dishes, and again, that's digital transformation. So I think. We have on one side of the table, we have work from home, and we have remote working and trying to collaborate and do all that securely. But on the other side, we have this huge digital transformation opportunity that is actually changing these businesses as we move into this new norm. And for us at Microsoft, that's really interesting. That's what we're helping our partners try to see that opportunity with.
Very cool, very cool. And on this, since we're in the breakout here, I'm throwing the topic out. You guys respond as you want. If you don't want to chime in, which I can't imagine you guys don't want to chime in, but if you don't want to, we can move to the next question. So.
Yeah, no, I may hit two with you, Ray. One that's been interesting. You mentioned healthcare. It's not just a matter of how they're dealing with their typical brick and mortar. Right, but it's also this whole pop-up scenario has been crazy. We've worked with partners, and frankly, some of the companies that are on the call with us here today on a solution. We lit a COVID hospital in a major city with iPhones without SIM cards in them, a Cisco client on them, and brought in Wi-Fi. The partner was involved in that, and stood up a 5,000 bed hospital in a matter of a couple of days. We're assets are virtual, right? In a lot of ways, that idea of, having to stick something in a closet really in a lot of ways doesn't exist anymore. Another area, Matt mentioned hospitality. Here's an interesting thing, right? I mean, we have a hospitality solution that ties in with the various property management systems that hotels use. And what a lot of the hotels that are our customers have been coming back and asking us is they're saying, listen, we're suspecting that our utilization is going to be low, or at least bouncy for some time. What are your thoughts on that? They have their office staff, but then they have their room staff, their rooms, I'm sorry. and we've been able to move very quickly towards a completely utilization-based billing model for hotel rooms, right? For that class of seat, if you will, for the traditional telephony that remains in there. So I think, businesses we're getting creative around the tech that we have to deal with the norm that's coming, right?
And you hit a word that I just love, creativity, right? I think, a partner, one of our sales partners today, they have to be creative, right? Don't go in with the same old solution, talk to you guys, right? About, what's going on. This panels only can go so deep, get with that partner, that customer, figure out what they're suffering with, bring it back, have dialogue. I know just in the engineering team at ScanSource and Intelisys, we've found so many different creative solutions out there that can help that partner out. So yeah. Great points. Chris, you want to chime in?
I think. Yeah, sure. And I think to your last point, Ray, I think when you do that creativity, though, you've got to look and make sure that the experience is maintained and the workflow is frictionless. So often what happens is that you can put a whole bunch of stuff together, and then you can say, oh, well, it's not my responsibility to train the users. Go and train your 100,000 users on how to go and do that. And that doesn't work well. And I think you're going to see a ton of opportunity to what Scott said. Healthcare is one. I mean, it's tragic because you have 1 million healthcare employees that are laid off currently. So everybody thinks that that's the business where it's like, wow, it's really there. They're going to be really capital crunch, or they're going to be capital constrained. Yet how do they get the patients back in? All the clinics that you see around here, how are they going to get patients back in? Because the clinics don't get paid if the patients don't come through the front door. They don't get paid. So I think you're going to have to offer services that are very uncomfortable to do at home. And again, back to what we talked about in the other segment, just because people are at home, you can't accept that that's the best place to be for certain things. So if I have to have a mental health, a psychiatry, a substance abuse consultation, do I want to do that in front of my children at home and where everybody else can hear me that's behind those walls? No, I don't. So maybe some of these these clinics will evolve to then say, we can provide you those services, not face to face, but we can find a remote, but you can walk through the front door so that you have an experience that can be engaging. Because again, certain things, if I'm at home and I'm trying to do a video call on my iPad or my iPhone with my doctor or what have you, that may not go well. I have a network challenge potentially, it's unknown. And the clinics could offer services there where it is known, where partners can go and integrate and make sure that they can deliver those services by getting those patients to walk through the front door again.
Yeah. I want to switch this conversation because Scott sort of alluded to it, and to me, it's a very big point. Right now, everyone's been hit hard, and we're seeing so many different industries. I don't think any industry, or there are some, have excelled during this, but I'd say 90% of them have taken some hit. Now we're going to go back into the office as this calms down, or if we go with the resurgence idea, everybody's going to come back, and there's going to be a bunch of changes everybody wants to be able to do. The compute that was on site, they might want to be able to move that to a different scenario. What advice do you have to a CTO or a CIO when they go to the CFO and they say, hey, things are tough, I don't have the funds, we don't have dollars to be able to do projects? What's the advice that you have to them? What would you tell them to say to that CFO or CEO?
Something that that I've been seeing with our partners just in the past couple of months is exactly this, right? Strapped for cash, if you will, and the budget's just not there. It's also a matter of just trying to figure out what is the business case? What is the business outcome? To do that project, what is actually going to have an impact on the business? So for example, if I have people that are working from home and they're not using a legitimate device, but they're using a 5-year-old computer that they had in a closet and they're just trying to access email, but it's a horrible experience. maybe I might want to go get budget to get something like Windows Virtual Desktop, stream it from the cloud so they can access it. Or maybe I might want to go get budget to, try to get new laptops for them. But I have to also have that business outcome in mind. I got to paint that whole case back to the CFO and the rest of the board to say, this is why we need it, because of productivity, but also here's what can happen as a result of it. And for us, something that's really interesting that's happening is, we toss around the digital transformation, buzzword, but it's happening. And what's happening is they're starting to realize that we either already own this technology, or all we have to do is do a few things here to get it lit up, but the outcome can be tremendous, not just enabling people to be more productive in a secure way, but as I mentioned before, transforming the way the company or the organization does business. So you have to build that case, right? And you have to be able to partner with that CFO to get that done.
And Ray, maybe to add to that, from and this is specifically for the partners, from a CISCO perspective, we just announced a $2.5 billion fund that basically allows the customer to buy now, and it's going to be a monthly, and defer it till next year. Why that's really important for the partner is because the partner gets paid now. So what happens? It's a $2.5 billion fund that Cisco's financing on that, so customers can buy their infrastructure today and put it off to next year in terms of paying for it. And I think the key thing, what I would say is, you got to be careful. If you don't have your employees engaged, then you are going to run out of runway. So if you can't figure out how to get your employees collaborating and feel engaged and accept the reality of you're going to have some mix, but there's certain things that you're not in control of. So you can only be in control of certain things. You are in control of how to get your employees to be engaged in a really good way, but you're not in control of whether they're allowed to be in the office or not. That you're not in control of. So you got to, that's the key thing, is focus on the employees, because they run your business. That's where you need to focus on, and you also need to focus in on, back to what Scott said earlier on, maybe have given them some network services so that it's good, so that they're not the employee. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't get good internet here. I got my kids at home, they're sharing the Wi-Fi and what have you. That's what you really got to be thinking about, is how to get them engaged, get the right network, get it to be secure as well, and then get them collaboration systems that allow them to engage and be comfortable and not always necessarily hunched over 8 hours a day on a laptop.
So don't just sell it as a cost, but it's the experience. It's you're going to get more out of your employees if their experience is better, potentially, right?
Without a doubt.
I mean, there are many studies. I don't have one at the ready right now, but maybe that's something that we can follow up on. that are saying right now that employees are working more when they're working from home, because they're giving you the commute time, right? So something to think about. Ray, you and I have had this conversation going over a decade right now, the OpEx, CapEx conversation, and in a good economy, people care about EBITDA, but in a bad economy, they care about cash, right? Which is that's a commercial for MRR.
Yep.
Right? And that's what your partners are trying to get, right? Don't buy the thing, defer the thing. And there's plenty of programs out there. There's plenty of things that can be bought and serviced. I think the other thing to think about is this. Chris, you mentioned, earlier, you're talking about creativity, and I'm paraphrasing, creativity is great, but it can also make a little bit of a mess. I don't think you said it quite so bluntly, but, it creates redundant expense, and it creates, other things. We ran out to get ourselves working and didn't consider the expenses of getting ourselves working, right? Businesses have multiple meeting solutions in place. They ran into workstream collaboration like WebEx Teams or Microsoft Teams. They threw a bunch of teams up with no strategy around what made up a team, what wasn't a team. I mean, there's going to be a massive opportunity right now for partners to engage in the cleanup.
Yeah.
And and there's going to be savings in the cleanup also. Right.
Okay.
So I think where partners need to focus their energy on right now is just, like I said, getting good on that. It's a pretty logical conversation. It's not really a technology conversation. It's like, so we shut the world down and you ran home and you did some stuff and you probably realized that you thought you were going to get 40% of the way there and you got 60% of the way there. But let's talk about the other 40.
Yeah.
What didn't work?
I think the other thing,
where are those things? There's money to be made there.
I think the other, Ray, just to follow up on Scott specifically for the partner aspect in there, because I think we got to look at that as well, is compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the partners that ScanSource have, yes, a good chunk of them, especially on the Intelisys side and what have you, are fully familiar with MRR. You go to the ScanSource KBC side, that is upside down and completely the opposite. So if we're talking here about what Scott and Matt were talking about in terms of, yes, you can offload some things off to the cloud and what have you and get it set up quicker and be more flexible, which between all of our organizations, we do that. It doesn't help if the partner salesperson is only paid on OPEX. And the vast majority, particularly on the ScanSource side, are paid on CapEx, and their comps plan are aligned to CapEx, not to MRR. So I think one of the things that partners got to do is work on really quickly so that their salespeople aren't out there pushing just one flavor because of how they're compensated.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, that's a really good point. I mean, you want to make sure you have the best solution for the customer. You don't necessarily want to go out and just sell a box, right? I mean, let's try to find the best solution. Sometimes it's a combination of multiple things, but compensation is certainly important. And then just to kind of go back to Scott, what you said about just kind of security. When I think about this, and some of the customers I've been working with as of late, they have security on the mind tremendously, because here you have people working from home that are maybe on personal devices, saving email attachments, saving sensitive information from their customers. You don't know where that's going. And so once we start to maybe have this resurgence, we have a hybrid model, whatever works out, I think we're going to see a lot of revamping of security as well. And I think when you do that, it's also going to start to enable some of these modern collaboration tools. So just something that we start to think about.
Yeah, no question.
I totally agree with you on that. One of the things that was in my head putting this panel together was, during the early days of the breakout of the virus, we saw certain things skyrocket, right? We saw UCaaS, contact center, collaboration go through the roof, right? Especially delivered as a service, right? Mobile expense management was something that, frankly, not many people thought of, but because everybody's remote, all of a sudden mobile expense management, putting security on the cell phone device and being able to push stuff out. And, you talk about security, it's a big concern. People are using sometimes personal computers for things, right? So what I throw out to you guys as a panelist, beyond those topics, what are some of the other hot technologies or hot areas that you'd say, hey, Mr. Partner, think about this? Because not just that it's a sale, but it might lead to other sales. One of the things I'm doing at ScanSource is we're working on some professional services to be able to help our partners so that they can get to some of these other sales. So I sort of throw it to you. Don't think about just what makes them money, but what makes them money and what makes a customer tick in the long run, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll just kind of jump in. So, I mean, obviously things like Teams, we've seen a surge in, but when I think about Windows Virtual Desktop, here we have a VDI instance. Basically, it's a Windows computer streaming from the cloud, from Azure. I log into it from really any device, and I can have my full desktop, I can have all my apps, I can have my voice solution, everything is there, but it's containerized. And so I can access it on any device, and I don't have to worry about data leaving that instance, right? And so from a security perspective, that's really kind of the best of everything. But when I think about security, I think about all the MRR capabilities there for a partner. It's not just going in and selling a license of security capability. It's also about deploying that at scale, standardizing, scripting it out, whatever it is, and then ongoing monitoring of that. And so if you think about deploying a security solution and then monitoring that on an ongoing basis, looking for alerts, looking for an abnormal behavior, that's a huge opportunity for a partner. And then lastly, when I think about not just security and not just Windows Virtual Desktop, but when I think about something like just modern collaboration tools, takes Teams, for example, just being able to help a customer through adoption and change management. One of you, I forgot who mentioned it, people are just throwing these tools up and they're just trying to get something done right now because they have to without any kind of governance. Let's go back, let's apply that governance, let's talk about how to make these tools work for the business. That's a huge opportunity. And then from an MRR perspective, having reporting and being able to monitor this and watch the trends and readjust as you go along, customers need help with that. And so for me, that's kind of the three big things that when I think about opportunities for a partner kind of this new world, it's really Windows virtual desktops, adoption, change management around all these tools, and then obviously security.
Okay.
I mean, I would agree. We saw a massive surge in desktop as a service in those first couple of weeks. And in some cases, and here's what we learned too, right? You go all the way there because here's, the problem is not every worker in the business, this is that sort of mobile first discussion we were having earlier. Not every worker in the business has a laptop.
Yep.
Pick up their work experience and go home. But, the Windows Virtual Desktop or other DaaS platforms, value proposition has always been around making it device independent, right? And saying, whatever you have, we're going to use, we stay. What we also learn in a lot of this is that that's a pretty big perimeter, right? When you get down to deploying the desktop, what you end up finding is that you really need to be thinking about what are the profiles of your users and what do you need to deliver in each case. Thank God for SaaS, right? We ended up deploying a bunch of DaaS and then finding out, the customer was questioning themselves saying, how many applications do I really actually still have inside the business? I mean, is this a DaaS conversation or is this an access management conversation? You know what I mean? And for some, absolutely, engineering and software dev and, artists. But then there were all these information workers that were, Teams, WebEx, they're using Office 365, they have Salesforce.com. And then you're like, wow, a thick desktop, I don't know, right, for them. So, in our world, we talk about workspaces really is the way we go about that. And workspaces is sort of a suite of things that starts at access management and ends at a desktop. And it says, who are the base users that just need to secure their way into all their SaaS apps with one password, right? And then, who are the people in the middle who have a bunch of SaaS and there's just one app floating around, Joe's C# accounting app from 15 years ago that you just can't seem to weed out of the business. Let's virtualize that one thing and deliver that. And then there's the class of people in the business that require all of it, right? They require a full virtualized operating system. They need that start menu in the cloud. And it's just a conversation that I don't think that a lot of IT departments are expecting to have, but they're being forced into having it now, profiling their people and saying, what do they need so that I can deliver it rather than just, letting chaos ensue.
We've seen that being a hot topic, even though they had to scramble out the door. In my view, that's just going to increase tremendously. Hey, we're running out of time. Chris, close us out a little bit and let us hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think in terms of just taking that last point and making it again on the human side is how do I have those both mix and how do I get people back safely? We talked at the start in terms of the opportunities for the partners to integrate and be able to drive real-time user behavior. All of the workplace experience companies and platforms are all going to say, we're going to give you a platform, it's going to tell you where people have been and what have you, and at the end of the month, you'll be able to tell 3 weeks ago was a really dangerous situation. Oh, I better have to social contact them and contact trace them to figure out who those people actually were. You need to prevent that situation because the more occurrences that you have there, the less likely that people want to come back and want to work from you. So this notion then of being able to count people in the conference room with these WebEx rooms, as well as outside of DNA spaces, that's an opportunity for partners to drive the return to work in a safe environment in terms of, I'm going to notify in real time that's public in the rooms and outside the rooms that that there's too many people in there, and I can escalate that with somebody coming on. Where the other side of that equation is look what's going to happen now with folks that have a condition like asthma or COPD. Are companies now going to discriminate against them? Are they now going to say, it's like, well, you're in that group now, I'm going to keep you away. I never want you to come in the office because then you're exposing me from a legal liability. Is that what we're going to see now? So how do you address that? And I think one way to address that is what we've been working on as well, is to get partners to work with the building management systems that those companies have. So I can say, yeah, I know the standard is 20% fresh air, but I'm going to adapt it to the number of people that are actually in there. So I'm going to ramp it up to save the most energy if I don't have to do it unnecessarily. But I'm also going to be able to tell people we're pumping more fresh air in so that you can be safe and go back. You've got to think of how the people are thinking when they do come back. And then you've got to think, are those people in the office engaging with the people at home? So on the WebEx rooms and within WebEx as well, and even in Microsoft Teams also, you can see what people are doing. But if they're connecting in with WebEx rooms, you can then say, oh, the people in the office, I can see that they're collaborating in terms of, are they just having a local meeting? Are they on video? Are they presenting? Are they doing whiteboarding? So now you get it, because you don't want to create these second-class citizens. I think, Scott, you talked about that earlier on. It's like, oh yeah, it used to be, if you're at home, you have to expect to be a second-class citizen. Second-class citizens won't stay with you for very long. They don't like being second class. So I think, again, those are some of the things that you really have to think about from the human aspect and tie those things together, because all of them have to be integrated, which is all partner opportunity.
I think I'm going to change the panel to "Don't be a second-class citizen."
Don't.
Guys, this was really, really good dialogue. I wish we had more time. Thank you very much for joining and being thought-provoking. To our sales partners who are listening in, one, reach out to your solutions engineering, solutions architect teams at Intelisys and ScanSource. They're there to help you out. They can help direct you to suppliers like this, and if there's things that they can't solve, we have, from premise-based to cloud, we have, a solution for practically anything there. Talk to your suppliers, call these guys, right? Because, they probably will have a solution for you. Be prepared. These requirements are going to increase in the next couple of months. It's going to be, in my mind, when this sort of lightens down, which it is, you're going to see IT going back to the office and looking to re-architect. So be forward thinking, be open-minded, and let's all close some business together. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.